totally taken out of context.
Like, I'm just curious, like, what context would calling somebody a hoe be acceptable?
Matt James's journey as the Bachelor continues, and this week he attempted to shut down the drama in the house. Hey guys, welcome back to another shared news from home. We are so excited to break down this week's episode, but before we get into it, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. As always, I'm your host, Fiona Zaring, and I'm joined by the wonderful Gabby Ganta and Avery Grooms. You guys, this was a very eventful episode. I have no words to sum it up. I'm like still in shock. I think we should just dive in, start breaking it down, take it piece by piece. We picked up with the day of the cocktail party, which is kind of interesting. They gave us sort of like a weird, like leading up to girls walking around, getting ready that we don't usually get to see. But it set the stage because to say things were tense is probably an understatement. Heading into this night, the energy between what they called the OG girls and the new G girls was so toxic. I think I was really taken aback by how aggressive it had gotten, especially that moment where Kit and Victoria passed two of the new girls. I mean, what were your thoughts heading into this cocktail party, Gabby? Because I was stressed.
I was also stressed. I think the OG girls just felt so intimidated by the new girls that were coming in that they had to sort of like form this pact and like try to convince themselves that they were better for, X, Y, and Z reasons and just stick to that. And of course, if you're an OG girl, you're like, okay, like I'll be a part of this because, it means we're better or whatever. But it did create such a toxic house. And Victoria was kind of the ringleader in that. So I was expecting all hell to break loose, and it certainly did.
It certainly did. So toxic. It's kind of crazy how this kind of turned into the whole premise of the show. I mean, we always have drama, but not to the point where it takes up majority of the time and there's a main ringleader like Victoria and just all of this toxicity. And I feel for the new girls, the fact that the old girls even had to come up with this name and this pack, like the OG girls, the new girls. That is just a sign of insecurity to me. And it's just sad to see stuff like this still going on, especially at this point into the season. Not only that, but it taking up so much of the show. So I really feel for these new girls. They've handled it so well. And no one expects to go on and get bullied to this extent. The show's about finding love and maybe some peace.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally, as you were saying that, picturing past villains who have said things like, I'm not here to make friends. And like how friendly they seem compared to the energy in that house. But Matt certainly took charge. Obviously, last week we saw Katie sort of take him aside, cue him in. She was careful. I mean, from what we saw, she didn't name names, she didn't point fingers, but she was just like, hey, stuff is going on, and I think you need to get involved. He clearly took that to heart, and he kicked off the cocktail party addressing the group about bullying.
How toxic it is, how there's a mob mentality with the old women and the new women, this us versus them, really a culture of bullying.
Spreading rumors and sort of the toxic energy in general. And I think he did a really good job. He made his side clear. And I think it became clear to all of the women in that room that if you have something that you've done, it's coming up tonight. So get ready. Get your speech prepared. Get your apology out. Things are going to go down.
Very true. I could not believe Anna's face when Matt was talking about that because she just knew it was her. So
Some rumors that were floating around that could potentially ruin someone's life. If you're having to belittle someone else for you to shine, then those aren't the qualities I'm looking for in my wife.
let's get into how all of that unfolded. Matt took Britney aside first to ask if they could go talk, and I think that was the moment when Anna knew that she was in trouble. Matt didn't know what the rumor was specifically, but he knew it was serious. Britney said Anna was the one who went around telling everyone that she's an escort. Britney shut down this immediately when they're having the conversation in the moment, but still the rumor was being spread. Matt then apologized to Britney and said that this is definitely not okay. He encouraged her to bring anything up like this that happens in the house to him and mentions that he does see a future with her. So I want to know your girls' thoughts on just how Matt started to handle this. We know there's a lot of drama that he starts to, get to the bottom of and get rid of. And it's a tough thing to deal with, to confront somebody, to get down to the root of a problem and dealing with these girls who are really emotional about it. So, Fiona, how do you think that Matt is handling all of this?
I have to say, I've been so impressed with him all season, but I was really impressed with how he handled himself in not one, but all of these conversations throughout the night. I think he listened. I think he paid attention. I think his BS meter was on. He knew, what was real and what was fake. I think he was great at navigating that. And especially with Britney, I think, he understood the weight of this rumor, how unfair it was. And he not only did a great job about reassuring her about their connection, but made it clear that he didn't doubt her word. He made it very clear that I don't look at you any differently. This hasn't influenced me. And it is not fair for anyone in America to be left doubting or questioning you. So I think he did a really great job stepping in for her there. Whether they end up, husband and wife at the end of this, he showed up for her in that moment. I was very impressed.
I totally agree with you. The way he handles these situations are perfect, and not many people can do that, especially when you're the lead. We know Peter would not be able to handle these situations like this because it's tough. And the way he listens to everyone and he sees both sides and he considers it, and then he just doesn't deal with any BS. He goes and gets rid of the girls who are bringing drama, just ends it there. I just feel like he handles everything perfectly because these are tough situations, and I would panic. I wouldn't know what to do. I'd probably not handle it as gracefully, but he really seems genuine when he's trying to figure out these situations and solves them with a great response. So obviously a conversation with Anna had to happen next, and the conversation started off with Anna immediately explaining how she was disappointed in herself. She ends up owning up to all the rumors and explains that she feels horrible, and she ended up apologizing to Britney, but we did not see that on TV. And Matt mentioned that he was really surprised to see Britney so upset because when she showed up on the first night, she was very spunky and confident. And the second he sat down to talk to her, there were immediate tears. So he was already surprised to see that side of her, and that just showed how serious of a matter this was. And he went on to say he understands sometimes you say things you don't mean, but he has a responsibility to follow, and his heart can't see Anna being a part of that journey. Now, I thought, unlike some of the other girls, Anna kind of handled this well in terms of she didn't really fight it. She was like, what I did was wrong. I'm very disappointed in myself. And she kind of just left it at that and left, which is hard to do. But we see how it's worked out when people do fight it. And it's not always in the best lighting. But based off of how this ended, do you guys think Anna's apology was genuine? What do you think about how Matt handled it? Just what were your thoughts on her entire exit? Gabby?
I agree. I thought she handled it so well. Like you said, we normally see people trying to deflect or defend themselves because they think it's going to be their last chance to save the rest of their time on the show. And sometimes it does work, but in this case, I think it was just really telling of her character to just say, okay, I'm going to admit it. This did happen. I feel bad about it. And it's probably not going to change how Matt feels about me or how you feel about me right now. But this is what happened. So I think it was sincere, and you could tell that she was really beaten up about it. I think she was probably trying to be truthful and just apologize because hopefully that was going to save her, and Matt would see that, she's a genuine person and that this was just a spur of the moment, didn't mean it type thing. Of course, that wasn't true. And then he ended up saying that he's sending her home. And that's kind of when she broke down and realized that this is the end. So it was tough, but it was nice to see that she just owned up to it.
Yeah, I agree. I have to say, I think that Anna made a lot of mistakes, and sometimes, it's easy to fall into a pattern that you're not proud of, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be bullying someone. It could be you're trying to eat healthy and you're having ice cream every night. Like sometimes you just continue to fall down the wrong path and you keep going and going and going and you know you're not doing the right thing, but you just can't stop yourself. And I have to say, I think a lot of girls gave not genuine apologies. I think that Anna's apology was like 50% genuine, 50% like scramble. Because I do think she knew that what she did was wrong. I think she knew that it wasn't okay to have shared that rumor. I think she knew that her intentions were, not pure. But I also think that had she not been called out, had, this not been sat down by Matt, clearly she knew what was coming. I don't know. Would she have given us a confessional where she apologized and owned up to the behavior, or would she have just kind of continued as long as it was working for her, continuing to spread rumors and continuing to cause problems? We will, of course, never
Right.
know. I think that Matt made the right choice by sending her home. I think their connection was never like super exciting to me, anyways. So, for better or for worse, no more Anna. She looked amazing heading out the door. She had such a fabulous outfit on. So at least she had that going for her tonight. Meanwhile, completely separate from the Britney and Anna of it all, Chelsea, someone we're slowly but surely starting to get to know, who really hasn't been involved in any of the drama, decided to just start a dialogue with the women about bullying. And I don't know why this moment like spoke to me so much. I think it's because there's been literally no mature communication throughout a large group. And we had Chelsea, we had Michelle going. I just felt like, oh, finally, there's talking happening. She basically said, listen, I haven't really seen it. I haven't really been living it, but how are people feeling? And Michelle took the floor calmly, maturely explained what has been going on. She didn't embellish. She said exactly what we've all been seeing. And I think when someone laid it out like that, it was like a catalyst. Other new girls started, explaining what they had been going through, how they were feeling. And there were people on that couch who were guilty of that behavior. And I have to say, the apologies just started flying. We saw Victoria start her new narrative of not being malicious, just, it all being in good fun. Her attempts to apologize to Catalina, her attempt to apologize to Brittany. A lot of the new girls were skeptical of this sudden need from random people to apologize for random things. But at the very least, a dialogue was started, which I thought was a really positive step for this house. Just in the sense that maybe some of these girls who were headed on a nasty path got a reality check. I have a little bit of hope that perhaps the house won't be as toxic moving forward. What are your thoughts, Gabby? Are we too far gone? Is there no hope left?
I don't know. I was very optimistic like you in this moment that things were going to start getting better later in the episode. And, looking at next week's promo, I'm a little less optimistic. I think drama is still around because it is so inherent in this house right now. But of course, there are some gems like Chelsea and Michelle who are starting those conversations. And even Katie, who's trying to keep a house just like, keep the house alive and on its like foundation and not just absolutely crumbling. So as long as we have those girls around, I think it'll get a little bit better. But I'm gonna try to stay optimistic about it for sure.
Yeah, when Michelle laid everything out like that, it was, or at least I thought it was going to be a turning point. And it was in the sense where people came forward and said they felt guilty, but I feel like a lot of girls only felt guilty because they like took one side and never just spoke up about everything that was wrong in this situation. And her laying it out like that kind of illustrated all the wrongs in this situation, and people obviously started to feel bad. But then you also have the idea that it's going to get back to Matt. That's another reason why the apologies are coming. But I thought that was good. I'm glad, like you said, Fiona, there was finally some talking going on. And I'm surprised it didn't happen till now, because I know these girls are living together and there's probably so many moments we don't see. And the fact that this drama was so heavy that it carried into all the off camera time as well, obviously, is just crazy. Like, I thought maybe it would be just amplified for show, but they sleep in the same bedrooms. Like, obviously there was still so much tension going on up till now, but thought it was going to be a turning point. As we see in the promos, it might not be, but I'm glad they finally just talked about things and were able to get the whole OG and new girls separation out of the equation.
Let's talk about Ryan now, because she is the person who finally specifically opened up to Matt about Victoria. She got pretty emotional while revealing to Matt the mean comments from Victoria that were affecting her, specifically that because she's a dancer, she's a hoe. Absolutely not okay. Ryan said it really hurt her and that she does not think Victoria's apologies to the women have been sincere. So, just like we were talking about, people just started to scramble and apologize because they saw the effects of it. They saw Anna go home, they saw Matt like take charge and really um, crunch down on people who were being mean and starting drama and lying around the house. So Victoria was certainly one of those people who thought, oh no, this is my moment. Like, I've not been the best around here. You know, even if she doesn't admit it, I'm sure she knows deep down. And that's when she started to apologize to everyone. And of course, Ryan wasn't buying it. So she's the one who brought up the name of Victoria to Matt. And I think Matt's been sensing it for a while now that Victoria's, not a perfect peach in the house all the time. So do we think this is like the straw that broke the camel's back, or Matt's just like, okay, let me get to the bottom of this with Victoria? Or was he just like on a spree of trying to get rid of all the drama no matter where it was coming from? What do you guys think, Avery?
Well, first off, you don't just go around calling random girls hoes. Like, I don't understand Victoria at all. Like, especially because of her profession, which is a dancer. And at least she has a profession. Like, what is queen? That's not, she, like, I'm sorry. It's just so ridiculous. I can't get over her. But I think Matt, once he heard Victoria's name, especially, almost saw this as like a way to just get her out of here. I mean, we've been talking about how they don't have that much chemistry from what we've saw, and she has been the main source of anything problematic going on in this house. So I think that's the last thing he needed to hear, and he was just like, okay, we already got one root of the problem out. We have to get this next one, who is actually the main source. So I think he just kind of saw that as more of an easy opening to let Victoria go. And as we know, he's not here for any of the drama.
I totally agree with you. And I have to say, you guys, I was like watching these moments so closely. And maybe it was just me, but I feel like when the name Victoria came out, he was like, yeah, I get it. Like, he didn't say that, he didn't react that way. Maybe I was imagining it, but I feel like I saw it flash across his face, like he knew. And then there was a moment, I wish I had like written it down word for word, but it all happened so fast, where he said something to her about like, throughout it all, I've always thought like you had a big heart or something. Like, he kind of alluded to like throughout other things, I've kind of been rooting for you or believing in you. So I agree. I definitely think that he's kind of found her to be interesting, provided some entertainment on group dates, but like we've said it 100 times, their connection there, one-on-one, no sparks. So I don't think this was any skin off his back. I think he was ready to let her go. And I don't know. I just felt like he did not seem surprised. Deep down, I think he kind of knew. And I mean, we've said before, have producers been making him keep her? Like, was he kind of like, all right, this is it. Enough is enough. I can let her go now. This is getting ridiculous. We'll never know, but I'm suspicious, to say the least.
Yes, it's very suspicious. Well, at this point, Victoria is starting to become aware that her behavior is catching up to her, and she lashes out a little more before going to talk to Matt. She started off the conversation by saying how she admires how he handled the whole entire bully situation, which is kind of bold considering she is the bully. She tries to explain away her behavior, but Matt was just not having it. And then he went on to ask Victoria what context is calling someone a hoe okay, and tells her that there's basically a lot to think about. At this point, you could just tell Matt's completely overwhelmed and over it and over Victoria. And it looks pretty clear by the looks of his face that his mind is made up. And I don't think she had a really good defense. I want to hear your guys' thoughts though. How do you think she handled and approached this whole situation that revolves completely around her?
I have to say, I do not think this conversation went the way she thought it would. I think that she is someone who is gotten pretty comfortable speaking what she wants to be true and then believing that that is true. So she went into this being like, I'm going to tell Matt he handled that situation so well. I'm going to tell him that, like, you know, the energy in the house is X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm just going to try to like diffuse, deny, and diffuse. And he, like you said, Avery, was not having it. It did not work. He did not entertain that for a second. He breezed past any sort of like options she was trying to give us to, like, no, 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 this is what I was trying to do, or no, 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 this is what I meant. And when he hit her with that question of,
You know,
That was completely taken out of context.
like, I'm just curious, like, what context would calling somebody a hoe be acceptable?
I think everyone like cheered at the TV because that is what I've been trying to get from her this whole season. She does something nasty and then she refuses to own up to it, or she turns herself into the victim, or she switches it around on somebody else and blames somebody else. Like, she is not been taking accountability and hasn't really been pushed to be accountable at any stage of this. So from that moment on, I think she knew it was over. And I have to say, her defense was horrible. She would have lost this case in any court. She did not have defense. What did you think, Gabby?
Same exact thing. You put it so well. I think she's just two different people. You know, one with the girls and one with Matt. She's obviously trying to date Matt and trying to be on his good side, but then could care less about what any of the other girls thinks about her. So she's really just herself and like runs her mouth and says whatever she wants. And then when it's in front of Matt, when it really matters, she's like, oh crap, like, you know, he's seeing through me right now. And I really have no defense, like you were saying, because, you know, there is no reason that that would be okay. And I really think she's just two different people. One with the girls where she can say whatever she wants, and then another one with Matt who she's obviously trying to impress. But in that moment, she was just a sad puppy in the corner who had no defense, like really couldn't come back with anything. So it was sad to watch, but finally, like you were saying, someone is calling her out and she's not just, you know, bad mouthing right back to she really had nothing to say here.
Yes, we needed someone to call her out and her just to have no response. But in that discussion, he even revealed that Katie was the one who told him. And this could have been really bad for Katie, especially knowing Victoria. But even leading into the rose ceremony, Victoria went on to say just truly really horrible things about multiple of the girls. And I just don't think she really understands the weight of her behavior. I mean, do you guys at all?
Definitely not. The whole time she was like on her way out, and it was her interview that they just kept cutting back to of her saying ridiculous things. It just made me think like her reality is so distorted. Like, she's not seeing what's really happening, and it's honestly sad because she probably truly believes everything that's coming out of her mouth, but she's just so insecure or, you know, not happy with the situation that she's in, that she's just creating this alternate reality and really deflecting on other people when it's truly the other way around. Like, everything she was saying bad about the other girls was what was true about her. So I just hope she can like watch that and just flip the script a little bit, and hopefully it just plays out in front of her and she can see a little bit more of what is the true reality.
Yeah, I mean, listen, she did that Good Morning America interview. You know, she's posted some stuff on her Instagram. All of this happened last week leading into this. I think, you know, she knew what was coming and she was really trying to push the consistent narrative she's been putting out there is, I'm not malicious. It was all in good fun. And it would be really sad to me if she's sitting at home right now, you know, believing that. I think that there were moments in this episode where I genuinely felt like I shouldn't be watching this. Like, they're pushing the envelope here. Like, I am worried. Like, how could, if she genuinely believes the things she's saying, then this is a little terrifying. If she's just being nasty, okay, she's our villain. She's being unbelievably nasty. But, you know, if she believes what's coming out of her mouth, then there's like some work to be done, and everyone can work on themselves. But I just hope that like the internet can be a cruel place, and like yes, she's our villain, and yes, there's a lot to be said, but I really hope that somewhere she's sitting down, she's watching this, and the people around her are not saying, no, you were totally right, because that is not going to serve her. And, you know, she does have a big personality. She had some funny moments. Like, if she could just come to terms with the fact that some of her behavior was not okay and work on herself, that would be like, that would make all of this worth it. You know what I mean? She didn't go on the show to find love, but she turned her life around. I don't know, just went on a better path. It was really upsetting to watch. So I'm glad we won't be talking about her much longer. Of course, we can get into the rose ceremony. Obviously, spoiler, he cuts Victoria. But aside from that, I do want to point out he gave the first roses to Britney and Ryan, which was a clear signal to the women, which I absolutely loved. We did see our front runners follow them, which we don't really need to get into because, you know, we know who they are. But circling back to Victoria, because we do have to just talk about one more thing before we are done, till they put her in paradise. That moment where she said she felt sorry for him on the way out.
I feel so sorry for you that you would listen to hearsay and not all of the facts behind a situation.
You guys, my jaw dropped. I had chills. What an exit. I mean, can you remember, like in recent past, a more dramatic exit? I was shocked. What did you think, Avery?
In this moment, I was really questioning, like, did they call her in for this, like, specific role? Is she a plant? Like, this cannot, that can't be real. And the way that it just, everything lined up with her little monologue at the end, and they had clips for literally every reference she made, like, it just almost went too smoothly. Like, it was like a whole movie. Victoria's movie is ending right now. Like, it's just crazy. Like, maybe she is real and this is her and that's just who she is, but I'll never get over it. And I just thought the best part about the whole exit was how Matt just stood there with like a straight face. He didn't give into it at all. He was just like straight face, like nothing. And then she just had to walk away. I think he handled that perfectly, because what else can you say to that? Like, it's a huge joke. And I didn't expect anything less from her.
Yeah, I agree with the Matt moment because he just has to be so over it by now. Like, he's a pretty chill guy, and I'm sure he was like, okay, I'll be the Bachelor, like, let's do this. And then he realizes, oh my gosh, this is going to age me 5 years because of all the stuff I have to deal with. But seriously, such an exit from Victoria. I think, like you said, Fiona, we haven't seen one like that. And normally when you get cut, it's just like, okay, you accept defeat, you know, let out your emotions in the car and that's it. But she was holding her ground and not letting, you know, her go out without a bang. So that's certainly what we got. Enough talk about Victoria. Finally, let's now talk about the one-on-one with one of our favorites, Rachael. Rachael meets Matt for their date and he thanks her for being patient and tells her that it's her day to be spoiled. First off, they go to a department store and a celebrity stylist comes to style them. Matt gifts her lots of clothes and red bottom Louboutins, and it's enough to make a girl cry. Meanwhile, Rachael comes home with all her shopping bags and gifts, and the other girls are so jealous. I think this was such, honestly, a savage move for the producers to just have her open everything in front of the girls as if they weren't jealous already, to just see that all in front of them. She shows up with the shopping bags, opens a gift from Matt, which is a gown for their evening date. So overall, this was an amazing date. Rachael was floored and just so happy. And I think she was really like appreciative and thankful. You know, she wasn't like this probably wouldn't have been the right date for Kit because she's used to this life, but Rachael was like seriously feeling the princess moment. So I thought that was super cute. Definitely not like the ATVs and the mud date, right? I'm like a girly girl, so this would be my ideal date. But what did you guys think about how everything went down between Rachael and Matt?
I was really, really impressed. I mean, I think she was just beaming the entire time, and the level of excitement that felt so genuine to me every time she came out in a new dress. Like, he is just smitten. He's so taken with her. I am too. I mean, she's gorgeous. She's been nothing but friendly so far. We've only seen good things. I was really, really excited to be watching this date play out.
Yeah, I thought this was the perfect date for both of them because you could tell Matt was so into it. He loves fashion and she did seem very like appreciative of it. You made a good point. Like if that was Kit, it probably wouldn't be the same reaction. I just have to say Matt's just like really good at one-on-one dates. I feel like all of these have gone so well. I think this one was maybe the best just because of their chemistry and the whole vibe. They were both just like beaming the entire time and I like had fun watching it. They're really cute together. And their chemistry was on full display on the night portion of the date as well. Rachel opens up about her never being in love. She says she's never really felt deserving of love. And she even told Matt that she thinks he's out of his league, which I thought was crazy because the girl's beautiful. And then Matt told her that she does not have to fight for his attention because she always has it. She tells him that she is falling in love with him and wants to walk out of there with him. And he said he feels the same way and he gave her the rose and ended the night in a romantic carriage ride. I would say it was just a happy fairy tale and it looks very promising for the both of them to me, just based off of this date and everything. It's interesting, though, that Matt and Rachel have both never been in love before, and they both struggle with being vulnerable, but from the looks of things, they clearly look very comfortable with each other. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that we've heard Matt talk about struggling in relationships and struggling to like be himself and be vulnerable and all that. And now we're hearing Rachel sort of say, like, I've never been in love and I don't know if I'm deserving. And it just to me kind of feels like the way they're like glowing around each other, knowing that they've both sort of struggled with the same things in their past, it kind of feels like they're meeting each other at the right time. They're in a similar place, they're looking for the same things. They're both gorgeous. They're both having fun together. Like it's all kind of aligning and just building on top of each other. I do have to say, when she said she was falling in love and he said he bit back, I was a little surprised. We haven't seen that much of them together, but we've seen a lot of like longing looks and stolen moments, and every little time they've had has been successful. So I just think there's an energy between them. There's a really strong attraction. And I think she's gonna be, not just a front runner, but like the front of the front runner list for the rest of the season, unless something dramatically changes.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're both fully in it, fully invested. And I think if there's any like love at first sight type feelings between anyone on the show right now, it would be Matt and Rachel. They must just be so comfortable with each other and have an amazing chemistry. And like you said, Fiona, just be on the same page right now. So, especially because they both never been in love, like they don't know that feeling, and all of a sudden they're saying like, I feel it now. So that's huge. And I was like so shocked to hear that from Matt, especially because I mean, you're falling in love, but you're also dealing with so many other emotional just struggles and things. So I would feel like your head gets really clouded and it's tough to like determine what you're feeling. But good for them for being, really clear on where they're at, and it's just only gonna go up from here.
All right, well, let's move on because we also have a group date to talk about, which, first of all, to go from Rachel's dream shopping spree to literally having them work on a farm was totally shocking. I couldn't even follow like what the goals of these challenges were. I just the whole time was thinking like, what a pitch. Let's just put them on a farm, have them, dig in the dirt, run away from some chickens. It was quite a date. The big standouts, I think, where we suddenly saw MJ as like a full-blown character. We've only heard some sort of snippy little teeny one-liners from her. We've seen a few moments with Matt, but really nothing crazy. And they kind of threw her into the spotlight here. They made it very clear that she was pulling an angle throughout this date. She was being very strategic to get his attention, to try to steal some extra time. And then, of course, we have to talk about Piper and Matt's makeout, because that kind of took me by surprise. I was not expecting that.
Do you want to get in my interview with me? Oh.
And of course, my new fave, Michelle. she's kind of had a backwards experience. She got here, she met Matt, she had a date with him, the date went amazing, and then she kind of had to come back down to Bachelor Land and see him with other women for kind of the first time. So she was struggling a little bit throughout this date. But let's get back into that Piper kiss because we've only seen little moments of them leading up to this. They've all been great. But I kind of feel like maybe there were some more moments that couldn't make the cut because of, I don't know, 25 minutes of Victoria drama that had to be in all of the other episodes. Because that took me by surprise. What did you make of that, Avery?
Like you said, there's probably so many moments we haven't seen within all these little moments we do see of them. And I feel like the same thing kind of goes with Rachel. To us, the like, I'm in love with you kind of came out of nowhere, but there is a lot we haven't seen, mainly due to like all this Victoria drama. So that's kind of like hopeful in a sense for me because like they are actually establishing like genuine relationships and it shows because this kiss didn't just come out of nowhere. Like it did, but it came from a place and it's also coming from a place that she's going to get a one-on-one next week. So I'm really excited because I want to see more of this. I like her. We haven't seen a lot of her. But each little moment, like I really like her a lot.
I agree. I am not surprised by this kiss. I think, Matt's a bachelor. He's got to keep his composure, but he's still a guy, right? If he sees a moment, he's going to seize the day and just go in for the kiss. I think him and Piper have had some awesome moments. So he's just capitalizing on that. And I think she wasn't mad about it either. All right, next up is the cocktail portion of the group date. We saw Matt continue to make progress with Chelsea. He also had a very meaningful conversation with Abigail. They got into some deep topics. She says she fears that she'll disappoint him, which was pretty sad. She mentioned that there is a really strong possibility that her kids will be deaf and talks about how her dad walked out on her family. So I feel like this stuff was weighing on her and she just decided to take this moment that she had with Matt and just open up and get that off her chest. I think it was such a difference from the beginning of when she sat down with Matt to the end after she just got this off of her chest and got to open up to him. She was like all smiles after that. Matt did tell her that he admires her and validated his feelings for her and their future. Michelle then also opens up about struggling with the other women in terms of their relationship, and he also validates her feelings. So it looks like even though Michelle and Abigail didn't get a ton of one-on-one time with Matt this week and were struggling because of that, he just took the time to sit down and say, I know it's tough this week, but I still care for you and I see a future with you. So that went, a long way for both of them. And I think they're feeling a lot better going into next week. But what do you girls think about this group date cocktail party?
Yeah, I mean, listen, what is starting to stand out to me is he had a really comforting emotional conversation with Abigail where he validated her, validated his feelings there. Then we saw Michelle, someone who's an incredible woman we're starting to get to know, validated her feelings. And I do not doubt his intentions at all, but I'm starting to make my strong connection list and it just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. People that I've seen genuine sparks with, people that I've seen him really invest emotionally with and then show up again and validate those, emotional investments that he made earlier on. So I just keep thinking about that final four and my list is at 6 or 7 right now. It's going to be hard for him to start to narrow this down because in between all of the drama, there are some incredible women here and they're really making amazing strides relationship wise. So I don't know. It's going to be tough. What do you think, Avery?
Yeah, I agree. It's gonna be tough. But that's what I like about Matt is he acknowledges when people don't get enough time and he goes and has that conversation and reiterates I want you to be here. I'm glad you're here. Just so appreciative. But like you said, Fiona, the list is getting longer and longer. We kind of saw him do this with Chelsea. He reassured her where they stood. He did this with Abigail. Not like it's a bad thing, but at the end of the day, we just see his connections growing with a lot more people than I thought all at once, especially now that we got all the drama kind of out of the way. You really see how many connections he does have. but it's hard not to have a connection with a guy who is so nice and considerate and just handles situations so well. So I get it. So this week, Matt was all about eliminating drama, and he continued to do this with MJ. He ends up revealing to her that a lot of people have said she's causing a divide in the house. She says there's no truth to this, but she basically continues to justify this by saying she leads by example. This is something she says over and over again.
At the end of the day, like, I lead by example. If I see something, I'm gonna make peace and harmony.
Yeah.
It was an awkward end to their time as Britney interrupted it. She decided to address the girls on the date. Jacinia revealed she told Matt about the varsity versus JV drama. I just think these conversations just suck to have because it sounds like elementary school. You're going to like tattletale on someone about like the varsity group, the JV group, and you're like, wait, these are real names? Like someone came up with this? But things kind of got ugly quick with Jacinia when she was backed up by Katie, when Katie was called out for her past behavior. MJ just kept saying she leads by example and is all about peace. What are your guys' thoughts about this with Jacinia and MJ's reaction and her whole notion that she leads by example? Because to me, we've seen kind of the opposite.
I agree. She was really like drilling this in, and I was thinking, just her tone of voice was like pretty nasty and like hateful. So it's like, okay, if you really want like peace and harmony within the house, like attacking these girls and like confronting them and trying to come at it from literally just your tone of voice is angry, like that's not going to solve anything. Like we've seen women in the house start conversations and try to be more communicative, by just opening up the floor and saying how you feel and not having to come at it from a place of like, I'm upset right now. So I did not think that she led by a great example for this. And she certainly said, some nasty remarks while Victoria and Anna were sort of leading the way. She, wasn't necessarily the leader of all of that drama, but she wasn't ending it either. So I just didn't like the way she was talking about this and trying to defend herself, because there's something there, and we're gonna find out more about that later.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that MJ has been like the villain validator throughout this whole process, if that makes sense. She's not the one leading the charge, but she always had an open ear. She always had a like, oh no, yeah, you're right, they're the worst, or well, we're the varsity squad, they're the whatever. Like she always had something ready to egg someone on or to just sort of endorse some of these nastier feelings. And I think that at a certain point, I started to realize her one-liners were piling up, and perhaps had she been just a hair more aggressive, when you're going toe-to-toe with Victoria for the villain of the season, you're gonna lose. But the moment Victoria was out of the way, I think it became very clear that she is a manipulator. And I mean, you kind of touched on this, Gabby. She sits down with the women, and I feel like she used the phrase, like, there's an open floor, there's a whatever. And it was so hostile. She was literally inviting people to address their issues with her, while in my mind, causing a new problem, right? I mean, she just really has an aggressive streak. And I have to say, I think leading by example, leading with peace, all these weird phrases she's been using, I think that's like an aesthetic she's trying on. She thinks it sounds good. She thinks it's like a cool vibe to have, but that is not who she is. Because at what point in any of this has she led with peace? When she was calling people out, when, she was belittling other women? Like, no, that is so not, I can't even finish the sentence. I can't comprehend it. It did not make sense to me.
Tell her how it is, Fiona.
It didn't feel good. It honestly, like, I'm telling you guys, it rubbed me the wrong way so intensely. Because again, it just felt like sort of the same thing we were talking about with Victoria. Where is the accountability? And that's what Jacinia kept pushing for, was like, well, wait a second, you did do this. Like, this is gonna air. You did these things. You said these things. Are you still not gonna cop to any of it? So anyways, I could go on, but I have a feeling next week we're gonna see her, get hers. Matt has been really, really good now that he's aware of weeding out the BS, and I don't think she's full of BS. Just saying. Moving on from her, because I gotta calm down. There's more to talk about. We did have another one-on-one with Kit. he invited her over to cook dinner, which is such a simple date compared to Rachel's, but one that really touched her. She got emotional just at the thought of that maybe being what they were doing. So totally the right fit. She revealed that cooking with her mom and their kitchen is her happy place. So he was kind of trying to recreate that for her. She opened up a lot about how she kind of grew up in the public eye with a lot of golden Bentleys, I believe is what she said. But golden Bentleys aside, she talked about, the walls it's caused her to put up and how it's sort of been hard for her to really have genuine connections romantically over the years. And Matt, interestingly enough, in his sort of like interview moments, really talked a lot about how much he's enjoyed her and the time they've spent together and her energy and all of that, which we haven't really gotten to see. We have not seen a lot of moments between them. So again, I think this is just sort of hinting at there's a lot of little stuff we haven't been seeing because there just hasn't been room for it in these last episodes. The one thing he said is he loves how authentically herself she is, which I actually think is a really great way to describe her whole personality. This took me by surprise. She tells him that she's starting to fall in love with him, and he handled it gracefully. And I don't think he slighted her by any means. I think it was a really sweet moment, but he did not say it back. And again, we did see with Rachael, he said, I'm falling in love with you too. He can be very, very intentional with his words. So I'm just curious, you guys, because Kit has been someone I've been struggling to figure out this whole time. Just like MJ, we've seen some salty one-liners from her. I mean, just at the top of this episode, Walking with Victoria, she had a lot of hot takes. But by the end of it, she seemed like someone who's had an interesting life, can be very thoughtful, has been through a lot. So what are your thoughts on Kit? And also, what are your thoughts kind of comparing Kit's date to Rachel's date? I'm kind of leading with they had a good date, but Rachel's a little bit ahead of the game. What's your take, Gabby?
Yeah, it was really nice to see a little bit of Kit's emotional side because I don't think we've seen that yet. She has sort of been a little bit snarkier or friends with Victoria, which was, kind of a red flag for me when I was, deciding if I was going to like Kit for this season. But it was really nice for her to open up and for us to just get to know her a little bit better. In the end, though, especially comparing her to Rachel, she's just like so young and immature still. I feel like she's literally 21 years old. So, like, she's great and it does seem like they have a connection. But when it comes to just experience and like being able to take that next step, I don't think she's gonna be there. Especially like comparing to Rachel, who, they've just had such a great connection from day one. I think Matt feels great around Kit and wanted to explore that more, and they had a fun date, and so he thinks she's good to pursue a little bit more, but she's not quite there yet. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I was kind of having a hard time like figuring Kit out because at the beginning I remember she was a bully to Sarah. She did say some bad things to her. And like you said, Fiona, even at the beginning of this episode when they were walking in the OGs versus the JVs or whatever, that little beef. But then it was like kind of all of a sudden she wasn't a part of like that villain group and we like her. And I'm sure that had to do with editing and everything. But at least she's 100% herself, it seems like, unlike some of the other people I was calling villains. But that's something you could always appreciate. And I thought their date went well and it was cute and there was a connection, but in no way does it compare to him and Rachel's connection whatsoever. At the end of the day, I don't see them being a match. Like you said, Gabby, she's 21. I'm 23. I still feel like I'm 13. I couldn't imagine like dating a 28-year-old. And she seems like more mature than me, but like not that mature either. So I don't think they'd be great together. It just doesn't seem like a vibe. And it's like, how can you go from the date with Rachel to this date? Like they don't even compare. He was obviously just so in love on that date with Rachel. And this date was cute. I'm glad we got to see more Kit, but at the end of the day, those two connections just don't.
Definitely. And this was such a long episode. I feel like it was 4 hours worth of content because there was just so much. But here we are towards the end. We ended the episode with another cliffhanger, of course, not surprised. The Bachelor producers did this to us again. But at the end here, Matt sent a date card to the house requesting a 2-on-1 with MJ and Jasenia to find out the truth. So we detailed a little bit of their feud that was going on. And it's not necessarily a 2-on-1 date where they're going to have a lot of time to talk things out. It's just for them to sort things out ahead of the rose ceremony. So we see this whole montage of MJ and Jasenia riding in the car together, you know, walking through the doors together. It's very like dual vibe, like which team are you on? Like they're gonna go down. And then they end up sitting on the couch together, and of course things become heated and they end up starting to talk about everything that went down and arguing a little bit. MJ kicks things off by attacking Jasenia, and then Jasenia makes it clear that she is going to hold her own and isn't going to hold back, and that Matt will find out the truth. So I think we were talking a little bit earlier about how MJ is kind of being a little shady. She's not really who she says she is, and she's just really being defensive and not having a great attitude about all of this. So I feel like she's in the same boat that Anna was, and Victoria, and other people who are realizing that, you know, the truth is coming out about things that they've said and done, and they're just panicking a little bit. But I want to know what you guys think. It seemed to get really catty really quick between these two, but how do you think it's going to go down? We know there is a rose on the line, so it seems like Matt's going to choose one of the girls after he hears both sides. But which team are you on, or what do you think is going to go down between these two and Matt?
I have to say, when Jasenia and MJ were having their little discussion, I honestly disliked MJ more than Victoria, especially in that moment, just because of the way she reacted and responded. And Jasenia handled it so well because she knew she was right. She knew she wasn't in the wrong. And MJ just ended up looking like an absolute fool. But it gave me very much Bennett and Noah vibes, especially now that they're having that whole situation before the rose ceremony. I feel like it's going to be the same kind of format, same vibe just between these two. And it's kind of funny how it worked out, like towards the end of the episode, all of a sudden these two are arguing and now they're going to have like a 2-on-1. So I thought that was funny, but definitely team Jasenia over MJ all the way.
Yeah, I totally agree. If you couldn't tell from earlier, MJ is on my list. I was very disappointed in her. I think, you know, there are certain hot takes that are fun and snarky and okay, it's a tense-filled house, and then there's things that cross the line and become mean. And she sort of hinted throughout what we've seen that she's a mean girl, and this conversation sealed the deal for me. She kicked things off aggressive. She was saying nasty things. She was going for phrases like, this is embarrassing. Like, you should be embarrassed of this. And that's just like nasty energy to me for someone who's all about spreading peace. And I don't know if you guys noticed this too, but I feel like she can dish it. And she's one of those girls who kind of relishes in the delivery and the dish, but cannot take it. Because whenever Jasenia was hitting her back with, like you said, Avery, the facts, I mean, she had the truth on her side, which was always great. But like, she would hit her back with anything, and suddenly it was, you've said enough, don't talk anymore, like, this isn't true, blah, 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 talking over her. And then again, if Jasenia would talk over MJ, it was like, don't talk over me, don't talk over me. So she certainly doesn't seem like she's going to be having a productive conversation with Jasenia in front of Matt. The only thing I fear, and we haven't seen a lot of Jasenia up until this point, is she was going at it toe to toe. She had truth on her side, but she was getting sassy. She got a little catty too. So I don't know that either of them are going to say. I think if any of that energy is presented to Matt, he's going to be turned off by both of them. So I'm not sure that anyone's getting a rose. Of course, we will have to wait and see, because classic, they have left us hanging. So this is a fate we will not know until next week. But on that note, you guys, we put on our detective caps and we broke down the entire promo, because when I say so much is coming next week, I truly mean so much is coming. We're getting a Tyler Cameron cameo. We're going to see the end of this cliffhanger. We're getting a new feud with Katie. There's truly so much to unpack. We broke down all the clips looking for as many clues as we can. So if you want to check that out, come see our predictions. The link is in the description. And also, you guys, Bachelor Nation had some really hot takes regarding this week's episode. We pulled out some of the best. We broke those down as well. So if you're interested in seeing what fellow Bachelor Nation members were thinking when all of this went down, that link is in the description as well. On that note, you guys, we want to hear your thoughts. What did you make of this episode? Are you glad to see our villains gone home? Let us know down in the comments. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell, because we will, of course, be covering all things Matt James all season long. As always, I'm your host, Fiona Zaring. I was joined by the lovely Gabby Gonta and Avery Grooms. If you want to come say hi, our social handles are on the screen right now. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye.